Before we go into a stepwise walkthrough of the modules of Atlas, I thought it would be helpful maybe to just do a high-level overview of the workflow. I suspect everybody has built different workflows, and we each have different perspectives as to what a good workflow looks like. And starting something new may result in a change of the workflow. And so before we get into the actual program, let's take a look at the workflow. And so it starts with a blank slate. Atlas doesn't know anything about your raw materials until you tell it about your raw materials. It's one of the benefits of Atlas, right? It's using your raw materials, not generic raw materials. And so the very first thing you'll be presented with is the bean manager. This is really optional. You don't have to use the bean manager. It's completely fine if you skip this. But if you're a bean to bar producer who's receiving raw cocoa beans and then sub-segmenting those lots or creating different roast profiles with those lots, that may have different yields and different costs, you'll find the bean manager to be an incredibly useful tool for you to both maintain your sublot traceability as well as get a really good finger on the pulse of your costs. It will automatically export nib, processed, cleaned nib data into your raw materials manager. But this is also where you will enter all the rest of your raw materials. And so your milk powders, your sugars, your cocoa powders, your cocoa butters, whatever raw materials you want to use to build your products are going to reside in your raw materials manager. Once that's set up, you'll be able to then move to creating your new formulas. And so selecting create new formula will allow you to choose from any raw material that's been configured in your raw materials database. This is where we're going to get into the regulatory engine comes into play here. The refining manager comes into play. Some of the more advanced elements of what Atlas does are going to reside in this formulae tab. And think of this almost as your R&D sandbox. This is where you're going to try different formulas. You'll be able to iterate on them with a project management approach. Say that you create a chocolate and you don't quite like, I don't know, the sweetness level of it. You'll be able to then duplicate that formula, make notes to yourself, reduce the sweetness until you get to a point where you're like, this is it. This is the one that I want to produce in my plant. You'll promote that to production, and then that keeps your production library decluttered. So if your formulation library is your work in process collection of all the ideas you have, and your production library is reflective of only those ideas, only those formulas that you want to bring to commercial reality, that's what resides in your production library. Once those things are in your production library, you can initiate your production. It's going to automatically assign a lot number to it. You'll be able to designate what your batch size is. It's going to capture your raw material lot number for traceability, right? So you're using milks and you're using sugars and you're using lecithins. It's going to ask you to input lot tracking information for all those, which will then be searchable. So 2 years from now, if there's a recall on something, you'll be able to go back and see exactly what products were made with that and when they were made. Once production is completed, we're going to end production, at which point Atlas is going to ask you to tell you how did the production go. So if you said you were going to make 100 pounds, but you only got 95 pounds out of that because you lose some to utensils or to, some sticks to the equipment walls. Maybe you did some tasting along the way. It'll ask you how much did you actually get out of that, which will calculate your yields. If you set some specifications, it'll ask you how did you perform against those specifications, and then that's going to feed into a production dashboard so you can go back and look at over time how is your production running. Are you hitting the yields you need to hit? Are you hitting the quality you need to hit? And if you didn't set any quality specifications to track, it won't ask you about them. From there, now that you've set up your raw materials, you've created your chocolate, you're probably going to be interested in selling that chocolate. So we'll enter in some packaging material information, whatever packaging materials you use. We'll set it up in a fashion that's very similar to how we set up our raw materials. And then our final step in the process is going to be to assemble them all into a retail finished good. So we'll be able to select from any production formula that resides in our production library. So those subset of formulas that we have deemed worthy for production. We'll tell it what size product we want to make. Maybe it's a 50-gram bar, maybe it's a 60-gram bar. We'll identify what packaging goes with that. We'll add some overhead and some waste costs that we want to get absorbed into our pricing. And then we'll designate what's our route to market. Are we selling it ourselves directly to the consumer? Are we bringing it to a retail store where the retail store is going to want a percentage margin off of that? Do we need to go through a distributor to get to the retail store? So we're able to model different scenarios to figure out what our retail price should be, or what our margin is going to be, or what our retail price needs to be if we know what margin is that we would like to get. So very useful in helping us model various business scenarios to either understand the health of our portfolio, or to understand if this is new business that we actually want to take at a given price point or not.